So I went from several weeks of having my social media feed inundated with things about the Odyssey to now, over the last week or so, it's been inundated with things about Spider-Man and the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is not all that surprising. In some ways it's just a self-selecting thing, is that I've written about or commented on things about these things, and then the algorithm keeps feeding back to me these stories and related things over and over. And also it's just a time when obviously the Odyssey came out, the new Spider-Man movie came out, and they're two of the more popular movies in the world, making a lot of money and getting a lot of ticket sales. So it's natural that there'd be tons of people talking about them. But it got me really thinking about the bridge between mythology and comic books. And I do think that it's interesting because obviously there's a certain way in which comic book superheroes are kind of godlike, right? And in fact, some of them are literally modeled after gods, if you think of ones like Thor and Loki, for instance. And I do think that you can make an argument that in modern culture, the sort of fascination with superhero stories does mirror the old sort of polytheistic pagan cultures of ancient times, and the type of mythology that's expressed in something like the Odyssey. But I think there's actually a lot more to unpack there, because there's so many ways in which the fiction, the stories we consume and that we're interested in, reflect a certain view of our own world. And if you think about ancient times, it was the case that people lived in very feudal societies. They had kings, they had landowners. Most people were pretty powerless, didn't have anything like individual rights or safety and all that, and pretty much could only really survive by having fealty, by having loyalty to the few people in power. So people are kind of used to living in these societies where they were at the whims of the more powerful people, and they had to suck up to them. They had to get in their good graces for survival. And that's why it's very much, I think, a thing that in a lot of these ancient religions, the authority figures, the gods, are these very sort of capricious and emotional creatures who are far from perfect and ideal, because it represents the kind of leaders that these people had to deal with all the time. And I do think what you started to see with the rise of the Abrahamic religions, with Judaism first, and then of course Christianity and Islam that spun off of that, is a rise of a desire for a more fair and just world.